the water has stopped flowing. In the last 12 hours, a cascading failure has struck the heart of the Arabian Peninsula's life support system. The Gulf's most advanced, multi-billion-dollar desalination plants have gone dark. Is this a catastrophic technical failure of unprecedented scale? Or has Iran just fired the first shot in a new kind of war? A war for water. This is not a blackout. It's something far more sinister. Reports are flooding in from Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, and Doha. Taps are running dry in sprawling megacities that were built on the promise of limitless water pulled from the sea. The silence from official channels is deafening. But on the ground, the reality is setting in. This is a coordinated shutdown, a decapitation strike against the single most critical resource in the most water-scarce region on Earth. Sources inside the intelligence community are now confirming the unthinkable. This was not an accident. It was a targeted, malicious cyber attack. Malicious code, elegant in its brutality, was inserted into the industrial control systems of at least 6 major desalination facilities, including Saudi Arabia's Ras Al Khair and the Jebel Ali complex in the United Arab Emirates. This wasn't a simple ransomware attack. The code didn't just lock the systems. It was designed to cause maximum physical destruction. It forced pumps to spin at impossible speeds, deliberately creating pressure surges that ruptured pipelines and shattered delicate reverse osmosis membranes. The weapon was digital. The damage is devastatingly physical. And caught squarely in the middle of this infrastructure collapse are critical United States military installations. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the forward headquarters of CENTCOM, Naval Support Activity Bahrain, home to the entire U.S. Fifth Fleet. These are not just bases. They are small American cities, housing tens of thousands of personnel, operating the most advanced military hardware on the planet, and they all run on water, provided by the very host nations now under attack. As of 300 hours Zulu time, all U.S. bases in the Gulf have been placed on black flag conditions. Emergency water rations only. All non-essential operations are halted. How could this happen? How could the backbone of American power projection in the Middle East be so easily paralyzed? The answer lies in the brilliance of the attack's design. For years, strategists have focused on Iran's anti-ship missiles, its drone swarms, its nuclear ambitions. But this attack bypasses all of it. It targets the foundational vulnerability of deploying a modern military into an arid environment. An F-35 pilot can't fly if they're dehydrated. An aircraft carrier strike group cannot maintain combat readiness without hundreds of thousands of gallons of fresh water per day for its boilers and its 5,000-person crew. Iran, or whoever is behind this, hasn't sunk a single ship, but they may have rendered the entire Fifth Fleet combat ineffective without firing a shot. Hook. Breaking intelligence just received from a source within the National Security Agency. The malware has a name. It's being called StuXnet 0.2 by cyber forensic teams. The name is a chilling callback to the original Stuxnet virus that targeted Iran's nuclear centrifuges over a decade ago. The digital signature of the code bears the hallmarks of a specific unit within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Cyber Command, Unit 7835, the same unit implicated in the 2019 attacks on Saudi Aramco's oil processing facilities. The message is clear. You attacked our nuclear program with code. We will turn your desert allies back into sand with the same weapon. This is asymmetric warfare in its most terrifying form. The United States has spent trillions of dollars building a military designed for kinetic conflict, for overwhelming force. But this attack demonstrates a deep understanding of strategic leverage. Why try to sink a $10 billion aircraft carrier in the Strait of Hormuz when you can make its home port uninhabitable? Why shoot down a $100 million fighter jet when you can ground the entire air wing by simply turning off the tap? This isn't just a cyber attack. It's an economic and military siege conducted at the speed of light. The cost to Iran is negligible. A few dozen brilliant coders. The cost to the Gulf states and to U.S. military readiness is already in the billions and climbing by the hour. The Pentagon is in crisis mode. The National Security Council has been in a non-stop emergency session for the past 6 hours. The immediate priority is mitigating the damage. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is working with Gulf partners to assess the physical destruction, but early reports are grim. We're talking weeks, possibly months, to replace the custom-built pumps and membranes that were destroyed. In the meantime, the U.S. Transportation Command is organizing a massive airlift of water purification equipment and bottled water from bases in Europe, an operation not seen on this scale since the Berlin airlift. But it's a stopgap, a band-aid on a severed artery. Every tanker, every transport plane used to haul water is one less asset available for combat operations. The strategic calculus is brutal. The thirst weapon achieves two goals simultaneously. It creates a massive humanitarian crisis in allied nations, pressuring their governments, and it systematically degrades American military capability in the theater, day by day, hour by hour. This raises a terrifying question for CENTCOM planners. Is this the main attack? Or is it merely the preparation of the battlefield for something far worse? Re-hook. We are now getting reports of unusual naval movements in the Strait of Hormuz. For the past 90 minutes, U.S. and Allied surveillance assets have been tracking multiple swarms of IRGC fast attack craft moving out of their berths at Bandar Abbas. This is not their typical harassment pattern. They are moving into coordinated formations, creating a picket line across the strait's narrowest shipping lanes. They are not responding to hails. At the same time, commercial shipping traffic through the strait has slowed to a crawl. The entire global energy supply is now being held hostage. Is the water crisis a feint? A massive, complex distraction designed to draw the world's attention and U.S. logistical resources to the land, while Iran prepares to close the strait entirely? By crippling the U.S. Fifth Fleet's home port, they have severely hampered its ability to respond to a maritime crisis. The carriers and destroyers may be at sea, but their logistical tail, their support system on shore, is paralyzed. It's a brilliant, multi-layered, strategic gambit. Create a crisis on land to enable an attack at sea. But a new piece of intel just landed that complicates everything. A team from the U.S. Cyber Command, working with Emirati intelligence, has finally gained access to one of the compromised servers at the Jebel Ali plant. They've been analyzing the attacker's code, looking for attribution, for a smoking gun. They found one, but it's not what anyone expected. Buried deep within the malicious code, hidden under layers of encryption, is a single data fragment, a signature. This signature does not belong to the IRGC's Unit 7835. The forensic markers, the specific compilation techniques, they point somewhere else entirely. In fact, they look eerily similar to a cyber weapon last seen in Ukraine, a weapon that was attributed not to Tehran, but to Moscow. The implications are staggering. Is this a false flag? Is Iran using Russian code to cover its tracks? Or is this something far more dangerous? A coordinated operation between two of America's primary adversaries, designed to test the limits of U.S. power on two fronts simultaneously? While the Navy faces down Iranian gunboats in the strait, the digital forensics team is now racing against the clock. They're trying to determine if the code contains any other surprises. They've isolated a dormant module within the malware, a payload that has not yet been activated. They are attempting to decompile it now. The progress bar is at 98%, 99%. The decryption is complete. The team leader leans into his screen, his eyes going wide. He grabs his headset. He's shouting. The module isn't an infrastructure attack. It's a ship killer. The code isn't just designed to attack water plants on land. It was designed to target the onboard water purification and fire suppression systems of U.S. Navy warships. The implication is instantaneous and chilling. This isn't a contingency plan. The malware found at the Jebel Ali plant wasn't the primary weapon. It was the delivery system. The attack on the civilian infrastructure was just a symptom, a side effect of the real payload making its jump. But how? How does malware leap from a land-based water network to the isolated, air-gapped systems of an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer? It doesn't. It can't. Re-hook. The team leader at Cyber Command understands in a flash of ice-cold dread. The code wasn't transmitted from the shore. It was already there. It had been lying dormant inside the ship's control systems for weeks, maybe months, waiting for an external activation signal. The attack on the water plants wasn't the infection, it was the trigger. This changes everything. This is no longer a border skirmish in cyberspace. This is a ghost in the machine, a poison pill administered long ago. But how was it delivered? Through a compromised software patch from a third-party contractor? A tainted diagnostic tool used during a port call? Or the most terrifying possibility of all, a human asset, a sailor, an officer, a technician, who walked a thumb drive into the heart of the ship's command infrastructure. Suddenly, every vessel in the Fifth Fleet is not just a fortress, it's a potential crime scene. The enemy isn't just the swarm of IRGC boats on the horizon. It's a phantom, already inside the gates, with his finger on the trigger. The code itself is a work of diabolical genius. Disabling the reverse osmosis water purification system turns every warship into a lifeboat with a limited supply of fresh water. It puts a clock on their operational endurance. They can stay on station for days, not weeks. But disabling the Halon fire suppression system? That's far more sinister. It doesn't sink the ship. It makes the ship exquisitely vulnerable. A modern warship is a floating bomb, packed with munitions and jet fuel. Fire is the single greatest threat at sea. By disabling the automated fire controls, the attackers ensure that any hit from a missile, a drone, even a lucky shot from an IRGC machine gun could lead to a cascading, uncontrollable inferno. They haven't fired a shot, but they have effectively stripped the armor off every American warship in the Gulf. They've turned our greatest strength, our technological superiority, into our most profound vulnerability. The question for the fleet commander is no longer just how to respond to the blockade. It's a gut-wrenching new calculus. How many of your ships are already compromised? How many of your sailors can you trust? Do you risk engaging and potentially losing a multi-billion-dollar warship to a fire that should have been contained in seconds? Or is the choice not even his to make? The final, horrifying discovery is the trigger. It isn't an external signal. It's keyed to the ship's own defenses. The moment they activate their weapon systems to fight back, the trap is sprung. It's a checkmate, a digital gambit of breathtaking audacity. To fight is to lose. To not fight is to lose. On the bridge of the USS Vicksburg, the fleet commander watches the radar, the swarm of red icons inching closer. He listens to the voice of the Cyber Command analyst in his earpiece, a voice crackling with the impossible truth. He has been given a choice that is no choice at all. But in the calculus of war, there are always other variables. The human element. The refusal to accept the terms of defeat. The commander looks away from the digital map, from the screens that have lied to him, and out through the armored glass of the bridge. He sees the real ocean, the real enemy. He keys his microphone, his voice cutting through the tension. All ships, this is actual. Disengage Aegis. I repeat, disengage all Aegis combat systems. We're going manual. Guns and prayers, people. Let's dance. The order is insane. It's technological suicide. They are voluntarily blinding their multi-billion-dollar warships, neutering their primary defense against the very missiles they know the Iranians possess. But it is the only move left on the board. The swarm closes in. Without the automated tracking of Aegis, sailors become the sensors. They use high-powered binoculars, shouting coordinates. They use the Phalanx CIWS, the ship's last line of defense, not as an automated system, but as a manually aimed Gatling gun. While the fleet battles for its life in the analog world, the war for its soul is being fought in the digital one. At Cyber Command, the team is in a desperate sprint, reverse engineering the trigger mechanism, writing a counterpatch on the fly. It's a race. Can they purge the ghost from the machine before the Iranians land a lucky shot that forces the commander's hand? And then it happens. A single C-802 missile launches from the Iranian coast. A weapon Aegis was born to kill. On the bridge of the Vicksburg, the tactical officer screams, "Missile inbound! 2 minutes to impact." "We need Aegis, sir. We need it now." The commander stares at the approaching threat on the one remaining sensor screen, his hand hovering over the master switch, his face a mask of agonizing indecision. He is trusting the lives of 2,000 sailors to a handful of coders, half a world away. 50 seconds to impact. 40. At Cyber Command, the progress bar hits 100%. The lead analyst doesn't wait for confirmation. He slams a key. Deploying patch. All call signs. All call signs. We are green. The bear is caged. Repeat. The bear is caged. The commander doesn't hesitate. Light it up. The Aegis switch is thrown. The screens on the bridge roar back to life. A lock is instantaneous. A standard missile erupts from its vertical launch cell on the bow of the ship, a streak of white fire against the blue sky. 30 seconds later, the sky blossoms with a silent, distant fireball. The trap has failed. The spell is broken. Seeing their ace in the hole defeated, the remaining Iranian gunboats break contact, vanishing back towards their coastline. The battle for the Strait of Hormuz is over. But the real war, the shadow war, has just been revealed. The enemy is no longer at the gates. They are in the wires, in the code, and perhaps in the uniform standing next to you. This is the new front line, a battlefield where technology is both armor and assassin, and the next shot could be a line of code fired from 10,000 miles away. The old rules of engagement are gone. To understand the conflicts of the 21st century, you can't just watch the horizon. You have to look deeper. You have to break the front. Subscribe for more.